Alright, so we went ahead and created a temperature program and a password program using a for loop. But now let's go ahead and write that same program, or those same programs, using a while loop. Alright, so let's go ahead and come here and say new Python file. Let's call it while loops. And in here, how did it go? It was something like temperature is equal to was equal to input, enter the temperature. And then we had an if statement. If temp was less than 70, then print it's cold. And then elif temp is greater than 80, print it's hot. And then lastly, the else would be print it's perfect. Okay, so this was the program that we used as the body of our for loop, but now we want to write it using a while loop. Now this is just something that I want to show you, is that any for loop you could write as a while loop, and any while loop you can write as a for loop. Right. Remember, our for loop ran this 10 times. So I'm going to write a while loop that runs this 10 times. So I'm going to say while I is less than 10, colon. I'm going to take the body of the while loop, or the part of the program I want to repeat, the block of code I want to repeat, and I indent it. And so what does the while loop do? It comes here and it checks to see if that condition is true. And if it is true, then it executes the body of the while loop. When it gets to the bottom, it comes back up and it checks that this is true. And if it is true, it'll execute. So it'll keep on executing as long as this condition is true. Once this condition is false, then it will not do this, and it will come to the bottom of the while loop and continue executing your code sequentially, right, in order. So notice here that our I variable is underlined red, and if I hover, it says unresolved reference I. What that means is we never created an I variable, so we need to say I is equal to 0, like that. And you notice that it's no longer underlined red. Right? So the for loop created the I variable for you, right? The counting variable, we call it the incrementing variable. It creates it for you. The while loop, you have to create it yourself. Okay, so we make it out here, we initialize it to 0, we set it equal to 0 when it first starts, just like the for loop did, and it checks is 0 less than 10, yes it is, so it executes. And if I run this right now, I'm sorry, I need to run this one. If I run this and I say 3, 4, it's cold, I enter in, it will never stop. Do you see that? Never stops. And why? Because in the body of our while loop, the value I never changes. So in the when it comes back up to check, it's going to be a 0 less than 10, yes. 0 less than 10, yes. 0 less than 10. This Boolean expression here is always true because it never changes value in the body of the while loop. So what do we need to do to change that? We need to say I is equal to I plus 1. So now the variable I is a counting variable. It's going to count. And how do I know it's a counting variable? Because I have it on both sides of the equal sign. And this is how much it's going to increase by every time the body of the while loop is executed. So I was equal to 1. I'm sorry, 0. Checks is that true? Yes, 0 is less than 10 is true. It does this. Then it comes to line 13 and does 0 plus 1. And that equals 1. And I is now equal to 1. Then it comes back up and it says, is 1 less than 10? Yes, that's true. Executes, gets to the bottom, and I is now equal to 1. It was equal to 0, but now it's equal to 1. So it does 1 plus 1, and that is 2. So I is equal to 2 now. And then it comes back up here and says, is 2 less than 10? And so on and so forth, just like the for loop, right? So that's kind of the point here, is that you can write a while loop that behaves just like a for loop. So I do 54, cold, 89, hot, 111, hot, and so on. And I'm going to go ahead and enter in quite a few, and eventually it stops. Do you see that? It stopped. And if you went ahead and counted how many times it ran that, you would count that it ran it 10 times. When I was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then when I incremented to 10, then this was not true anymore. So then it went to line 14 and ended the program. So if you count starting at 0 up to 9, these are 10 times, 10 numbers. Okay. And in computer science, something you'll notice is that computer scientists love to start counting at 0. They do not waste a number, not even 0. So let's go ahead and stop the video here, and we'll talk about the while loop a little bit more in the next video.